seeing the problem a lot more. You see, if you get to the casualty in a hospital environment and you're bleeding, the first thing they do is to attempt to stop the bleeding. But then they must take you through the triage, they must do proper diagnosis, and they must eventually find and prescribe a regime that is going to deal with your case. And I think that a lot more remains to be done, that is not just in the space of government, that starts touching on all of us. If you look at cost, and I said this was going to be a commonsensical approach.
Sure.
Travel, movement, bring it home. Let's look at the way we are cruising on the roads. Let us look at the kind of motor vehicular kind of engagement. How many vehicles of what size for how many persons?
By whom, Barrack? The government?
I'll start from government.
Okay.
And then I'll move away from government, because in the end, it is about the resources that are available and how we are putting those resources to use. Within government, we saw, for example, that when Uhuru Kenyatta was Minister for Finance at some point, I think 2007, 2008, 2009, and he issued this directive that now we would only use vehicles of up to a certain capacity. Of course, it was flouted. It didn't last. But we need to get into that space and ask ourselves, do we really need the vehicles of this kind of capacity that we use in government? Do we need to have an individual like City Muga here having 5 or 6 of them in his entourage, and Barrack perhaps having 8 or 9 or 10? We must start from that space. And having delimited those ones, we must also recognize that it goes into the space of what everybody else has. There have been countries here, Singapore, which is cited a lot of times as the model, the role model, where Lee Kuan Yew at some point said, now we are going to restrict our motor vehicle use in this country to such and such capacity, because we have got to ask ourselves where the fuel is going. The size of government. Are we willing to look at the size of government city in this country? And the size of government has been a problem for decades. If you look at the economic surveys, over the decades, right from when we still had President Moi here, through President Kibaki, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and now President William Ruto, expenditure on development has never been above 15%.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, it's played at the mouth of 11 and 12%.
11, 12%. The rest is recurrent. We need to ask recurring so that it then supports what? Now we are in space where we brought another layer on board called devolved government. When we are looking at government expenditure, we fall short of being accused of being myopic if we do not look at the 48 counties when they are doing the devolution conference, where my brother Eric was the other day. They talk about 48 governments, and they put it there in screaming letters, 48 governments. In other words, they are talking about the 47 counties plus one, the national government. And the consumption. When you get to county government, it's like you've been given free license to do howsoever you wish. Nairobi is proposing to buy motorboats.
Is that
Well, okay, we don't know
I saw that, but I'm not.
we're not quite sure if that's the thing.
But anyway, but the point you make is a valid one.
Even if we say motorboats only from a figurative perspective,
yes,
that's how they are going to deal with El Nino. We are seeing the attitude. The attitude is that the public coffers are there to be tapped, to be exploited. President Nyerere used to say Mali ya Umma. And some people will ask you, Mali ya Umma. Someone who said it does not belong to our mothers. and because it does not belong to our mothers, it can be spent howsoever those who are in those places want. Today is Friday. And in the counties across the country, without exception, when they say, thank God, it's Friday. They're saying, Chief of Staff, today I want 600,000. I want 1 million. I've got a funeral. I've got 4 funerals. I've got I don't know how many weddings. I've got so many harambes. These are things that we have got to be very frank about.
So I hear,
if we have been having a national dialogue somewhere, have we been talking about how we are going to cut down?
So then I hear what you're saying is that there is an absolute need to cut down. And you've talked about 3 areas here. Number one,
and there's a 4th one which I'll come to.
Okay, so let me say those 3 that you talk about travel. It is not necessary, number one, to have these, what have been so, affectionately referred to as guzzlers. We don't need to have them in the number